They took my childhood bedroom and turned it into a closet for my stepsister. They shredded the last letter my mom ever wrote me, calling it trash paper. And tonight, in front of 200 witnesses, they poured champagne all over Mia's silent declaration that I don't belong here. The most heartbreaking part, my own father just turned away. That was the deepest cut. But what they didn't know, under that wet, humiliating dress, I had a hidden mic. Every lie, every dark scheme they just confessed is about to become irrefutable proof against them. There's just one problem. The mic battery has only 90 minutes of life. And I just got a text, they suspect something. In 45 minutes, the family lawyer will invite every suspicious guest for a private chat. You're first on the list. 45 minutes. That's all the time I have to survive in. Make them beg before the battery dies. To pull this off, I'm counting on a secret warning and the arrival of one special person, someone my entire family has never met. Hey? And who's about to make them pay the price? If I fail, it's not just my life on the line. Their $2 billion empire goes down with me. Can you imagine? I'm Isla Bennett, 30 years old. A black sheep with no money, no power, tossed out by my own family when I was 10. How can an outcast like me flip this impossible death trap? This isn't just revenge anymore. This is a battle for survival where only one person is walking out of this ballroom intact. I've been the black sheep. Since my mom died, I funded my own college tuition working terrible cafe jobs. They told me I didn't belong in their house, and I believed it. But I showed up to my grandmother's 90th birthday gala for a reason. Not for their recognition. I came to end this. I have a trump card they never saw coming. An 8-year-old secret that is about to shake their entire legacy. To understand why, you have to go back 22 years. Right now, frozen in the middle of the ballroom, soaked, as my stepmother Veronica glares at me. Did you get lost, Isla? She laughs loud enough for the whole room to hear. The insult was like a physical knife. But they don't know my partner, the CEO of the biggest investment firm in Seattle. It's about to walk through that door. Years of being dismissed are about to be repaid in a way no one could predict. If you're curious about what goes down next in this elite Seattle drama, stick around. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you want more family drama and the sweetest twists. To understand why she dared to humiliate me publicly tonight, we need to start at the beginning. My mother passed away when I was 8. 2 years of suffocating silence passed in that huge, empty house with just my dad and me. Then Veronica showed up. Perfect smile, perfect daughter, Celeste. 10-year-old me was desperate for a mother's love, so I bought the whole performance. Less than a year later, they got married. That was when everything changed. At first, I was so excited. A sister. But that hope vanished fast. It started with small changes quickly turning into an invisible wall. Isla, use the guest bathroom. Celeste needs her privacy, Veronica would say, pushing me out of our shared space. Isla Celeste needs new dresses. Your art supplies can wait. My needs always came last. The worst was watching my dad. He worked later, traveled more, and when he was home, his voice would just trail off when I needed him. James, I'm trying my best with Isla, but she just won't open up. I overheard Veronica fake sob one night. My exhausted dad just nodded and walked away. That silence was brutal. Through my teens, I threw myself into school and waited tables just to afford college. There was only one small moment. My dad actually showed up at my school art exhibition. He stared at my painting, his eyes wet. You have your mother's talent, he whispered. But that light flickered out instantly. His silence became the final wall. I decided to leave when college started. I couldn't stand being the outsider anymore. The second I got into college, I left home. Scholarship checks and cafe tips paid the bills. Aunt Claire, my mother's sister, was the only one who had my back. She sent me a box of old paints with a note. Keep painting, honey. Your mother would want that. Veronica acted all concerned when I asked why Celeste got preferential treatment. Celeste has different needs, she'd say. That truth stung my heart. My own father, still alive, never called, never checked in, as if agreeing I didn't need him. That abandonment was pure agony. You're a grown-up. Time to stand on your own 2 feet, Veronica said coldly as I packed my old room. Celeste stood in the doorway, smirking. Don't worry about family gatherings, she added. This house is different now. I was cut off from the Bennett family, left only with the last name to prove I ever belonged. But they didn't know that the night before I walked out, I took something that would become my ultimate weapon 8 years later. I won't tell you what it is yet because if Veronica knew I had it, I might not have lived to tell this story. The thought still chills me. For years, I barely spoke to Veronica or Celeste. They'd mail generic cards to keep up appearances, but no real calls, no real invites. Zero genuine care. And here's a secret I've never told anyone when I was 16. I accidentally overheard Veronica's phone call about a shadow investment, using funds siphoned from my dad's company trust. I stayed silent out of sheer fear for my dad, fear for the company my mother helped build. That secret became a double-edged sword I carried for 8 years, combined with the item I took the night I left. It is the trump card that will make the entire Bennett fortune tremble when I walk into that ballroom tonight. I graduated top of my class, got a job at a community center in Seattle, teaching free art classes to kids with autism every Wednesday night. I built my own life refusing to beg for validation from people who treated me like garbage. I was 24 and finally felt like I had my life together. I was settled at the Cascade Community Center teaching art to kids who needed it most. The pay was tiny, but I loved giving those children a voice with a paintbrush. My small Seattle apartment was mine. I had a few close friends. Nobody knew about my family drama. And that's exactly how I wanted it. I never thought life would make a sharp turn, forcing me to face the people who tossed me out in a way no one could have predicted. When I decided to go back to that party, I knew it wasn't just about revenge. It was a test. I wanted to see if Veronica would dare push me to the very edge. The edge where the 8-year secret would have to spill, even if it took down my father and my mom's company with it. One pouring wet Wednesday evening, Derek Monroe walked into my free art class. The room was empty. It was just me setting up the palettes. I didn't recognize him right away, which is insane. It's because I should have. Derek's company, Horizon Capital, was constantly in the news. At 32, he was one of Seattle's most powerful CEOs. But that night, he was just a tall guy in a casual shirt, slightly wet from the rain, dropping off his 8-year-old nephew who had a speech disorder. "Can I help you?" I asked, giving my usual greeting. He turned, smiling. A genuinely kind smile that lit up his brown eyes. "I'm just dropping him off. But I got curious about this class." He nodded toward the paint stations. "It's free art," I explained, talking easily about my passion. I help kids find their creative freedom, especially the ones who struggle to talk. The way those kids used color to tell their stories was amazing. We talked for an hour. I told him how art helped them express their feelings. What really got me was his sincerity. Derek asked deep questions and truly listened. Not like those parents who just check a box. "You really understand them?" he commented as I cleaned up after the class. "I believe in them," I simply replied. "Passion is easy when your work has meaning." He nodded, thoughtful. "I feel that way about my job, too. When it helps people, not just makes money, that's when it matters." As he left, he handed me a business card. "I want to support this program. Maybe we could talk over coffee." Only then, seeing the card, did I realize who I'd been talking to. Derek Monroe, CEO of Horizon Capital. I managed to hide my shock and agreed to meet him that weekend. Our coffee turned into dinner. The art program conversation lasted until the restaurant closed. Derek was incredibly down-to-earth, despite his status. He told me about growing up in a normal family in Portland. His parents were office workers who always encouraged freedom and passion. They thought I was crazy dropping out of my master's to start the company, he confessed, laughing. But they still cheered me on. They'd send me homemade cookies when I was living on pizza and working 24/7. I opened up more than I intended. I told him about the art classes, my small apartment, and my dream of opening a healing art space for struggling children. I was super careful not to mention my family, just the present. No past. After that dinner, we started seeing each other all the time. He'd show up at the art center with lunch, or we'd meet up after work to try different places around the city. He never acted wealthy. He always suggested simple stuff, like walking along Lake Washington or seeing small gallery exhibits. Money just makes everything messy, he said, when I asked why he lived in a regular apartment instead of some sprawling mansion. I've seen people who think money makes them superior. I don't want to be that guy. 3 months in, I still hadn't told Derek about the Bennetts. One evening on my balcony, Derek asked gently, "You never talk about your family." His voice wasn't pushing, just sincerely curious. I took a huge breath. My mom died when I was 8. My dad remarried, but my stepmother and I, we didn't connect. His patient silence helped me keep going. I told him about Veronica, Celeste, and my father's agonizing silence. The deepest pain, my voice caught, was knowing my dad thought I didn't need him. Derek held my hand tight. He listened, silent, completely focused. When I was done, he looked straight into my eyes. "They abandoned you, Isla. That was not your fault." That sentence, so simple, so true. It shattered the wall of self-blame I'd built around myself for years. As our love deepened, Derek never pushed me to reconnect with Veronica or Celeste. He understood I needed distance. He respected my boundaries. Instead, he introduced me to his family. His parents were amazing, treating me like their own instantly. His sister Nora quickly became the sister I always wished for after 1 year together. Derek proposed on a weekend trip to Whidbey Island. It wasn't fancy, just us walking on the beach at sunset. He stopped, held my hands, and asked if I wanted to build a life together. "I love your compassion, your resilience, and your ability to see beauty where others look away," he said, his voice deep, his eyes full of emotion. "You changed how I see the world, Isla. I want to face everything with you." We got married 2 months later in a small ceremony at his parents' house in Portland on like 50 guests, close friends. His family and Aunt Claire, the only one from my side. My whole family had no idea I was even dating, let alone married to a massive Seattle CEO. It wasn't about shame. It was about protection. The life I built with Derek was too precious to be contaminated by that toxic past. I didn't want to invite that negativity back, even to show off my happiness. After our honeymoon in Kyoto, we settled into a new house in Tacoma. I kept teaching my free art class, determined to keep my own career. Even with Derek's money, he supported my independence. He knew my work was personal joy, not a paycheck. For 2 years, we lived happily. Our joy had nothing to do with Derek's success or money. We traveled, followed our separate passions, and started talking about having kids. Veronica, Celeste, and my dad stayed in the past where I wanted them. Then the invitation came. A call from my dad's number popped up on a Tuesday. I almost hung up, thinking it was a mistake. But his hesitant voice stopped me. "Grandmother is turning 90. Dad stammered over the phone. "She wants you to come to her party. The family gathering won't feel right without you." I gave a little dry laugh. "I don't want to make my stepmother uncomfortable." He went silent on. In 2 years since marrying Derek and 6 years since I left home, Dad hadn't called once. They didn't remember me when I was struggling to pay rent in college. They didn't cheer when I graduated. Now they need me for appearances. When Derek finally got home that night, I was still sitting at the kitchen counter. My phone was sitting there, staring at me. "What is it?" he asked, kissing my cheek before he caught my expression. "Hey, what's going on?" I told him about the call. My dad and stepmom suddenly remembered I exist. Derek listened, his eyebrows pinching together. "Grandma's birthday?" He sat down next to me and sighed. "I know your grandmother matters to you, but I never expected them to invite you back after all this time. What is it?" I felt like I was missing something huge. Derek looked uneasy. "There's something I haven't told you. Horizon Capital is in the middle of $2 billion Australian merger deal. If a major family scandal gets leaked, the whole deal is dead. And Alexei's not just an executive. He's a plant, a rival company spy put in place to torch the deal. Are you saying, choked up, if they find out about us, it's not just me being humiliated, but your company too? We lose everything. Derek nodded, his eyes filled with worry. Thousands of jobs, your community projects, everything. But I still think you should go back. Because sometimes the biggest risk is refusing to face the music. My dad invited me to the party. Derek paused, thoughtful. That's unexpected. Shook my head. I don't get their motive. But I know it's not pure. I shut off my phone screen. I'm not going anyway. Derek was silent for a moment, considering. What if we did go? I looked at him like he'd suggested jumping into a fire. Why would I face the people who made it clear I don't belong? Because you do belong, he insisted. More than belong, Derek said firmly. And maybe facing them on your terms, not theirs, is the only way to get real power. I shook my head. There's nothing to gain. Veronica isn't suddenly going to become the mother I never had. Not for her, Isla. It's for your closure, Derek said gently. You've built this amazing life despite how they treated you. Seeing them again might be the only way to genuinely let go of that chapter. I thought about his words. There was something compelling about the idea of walking in confident and successful. No longer the desperate abandoned girl craving approval. There's one more factor to consider, Derek added. Veronica doesn't know who I am. She probably thinks you married some regular guy. She has no clue you carry the Monroe name now. Why wouldn't she know? I was genuinely curious. Veronica never cared about my life after I left. She wouldn't know who I married. We keep a tight lid on our private life. The press has only mentioned us a couple of times. No details, Derek explained. So Veronica has no idea her husband's estranged daughter married one of Seattle's most powerful CEOs. An idea sparked in my mind. Exactly, Derek said, a faint smile lighting up his eyes. No idea at all. For the first time since that phone call, I felt something beyond fear. This could actually be fun. We spent the next hour planning. Derek proposed the strategy. I would arrive first, alone, taking a cab, wearing the hairpin my mother made. I'd carry the portrait of my grandmother and me. He would make his entrance later, after I'd faced Veronica and the family. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Derek asked after we ironed out the details. We can still back out. Your happiness is more important than any moment of drama. I paused. Part of me was terrified to face Veronica, Celeste, and the whole family who'd cast me aside. But a stronger part of me was just tired of carrying the weight of their rejection. I want to do this, I said. Not for revenge, but for closure, for freedom. I've let their opinions define my worth for too long. The weeks leading up to the party were a seesaw of determination and anxiety. I picked a chic navy blue dress from a designer who'd partnered with my art center, along with my mother's hairpin. The night before, lying next to Derek, my fear surfaced. What if this is a huge mistake? What if they humiliate me again? Derek turned to me, his expression serious. Listen to me, Isla. You are my wife. You are a successful woman who rebuilt everything they broke. Nothing they say or do can change that. He gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. But if you want to leave, just text me. I will drop everything to come get you. You don't have to prove anything. His unconditional support gave me strength. Whatever tomorrow brought, I wouldn't face it alone. As I drifted to sleep, the key realization hit me. For the first time, I was confronting my family from a position of strength, no longer desperate for their love. Their acceptance no longer dictated my worth. That in itself was already a victory. I arrived at the Bennett house promptly at 7 p.m. in a cab. The pencil portrait framed in recycled wood in my hand. Engraved with the words, "Thank you, Grandma, for never forgetting me." The ballroom was dazzling with crystal lights and fresh flowers. The staff was guiding guests through the main entrance, where a photographer was taking pictures against a backdrop that read, "Grandma's 90th birthday gala." I took a deep breath, smoothed my navy dress, and approached the guest table. "Good evening, Ela Monroe," I said to the woman holding the tablet. She scanned the list, then looked up and smiled. "Yes, Mrs. Monroe, welcome to the gala." I stepped into the ballroom, feeling a strange, unsettling calm. The room was packed with distant relatives, family, friends, and old Seattle neighbors all, the familiar faces from those childhood family gatherings. Veronica was the first to turn around, startled. "Oh, Isla," I thought. "Nobody told you." I offered a small smile. "Grandma invited me." Before she could reply, I walked straight past her to my grandmother, handing her the framed portrait. Grandma squeezed my hand tight. Her eyes lit up. "Thank you for coming back, my little Isla. Nobody stopped me, but nobody welcomed me either." Celeste strutted over, a smirk plastered on her face. "You must have the wrong party, sweetie. The service staff used the side entrance." "I?" Celeste, I nodded, keeping my cool. Veronica's voice went shrill, loud enough for the whole ballroom to hear. "Alex, Celeste's husband, is a senior executive at Horizon Capital, the biggest firm in the city, darling. And your husband? Probably nothing special. I mean, look at you, taking a cab in that cheap dress. Still just drawing pictures?" Celeste chimed in quickly, dripping with sarcasm. "I bet her husband is a total unknown." Alex stepped closer, champagne sloshing in his glass. His voice was loud, clearly meant to humiliate Isla. "I hear you're still pursuing artistry." Alex took a condescending sip of champagne. "That takes guts. But tell me, does it actually pay the bills? Or is it just a cute hobby?" Celeste burst into laughter. Alex glanced down at my dress, a sneer on his face. "It certainly matches your starving artist aesthetic, doesn't it?" Then Celeste looped her arm through Alex's, pretended to trip, and shoved her glass of champagne right onto my dress. She covered her mouth quickly, faking horror. "Oops. My God, Isla, I'm so clumsy." Alex shrugged, grinning faintly. "Dry clean only, right?" A cold, sticky streak spread instantly from my waist down my thigh. The champagne soaked through the fabric, hitting my skin and flooding the tiny microphone hidden in the hemline. A red LED flashed weakly beneath the wet lace, blinking rapidly for a fraction of a second. "Warning, battery below 30%. Risk of data loss." The text screamed across my mind. My heart stopped. Had the liquid short-circuited the device and accelerated? The power drain. Celeste looked down at the stain, her eyes narrowing. "Ela," she said, her voice suddenly sweet and suspicious. "Let me help you wipe that off." Her hand reached directly toward my waist where the device was hidden. I flinched and stumbled back, accidentally knocking over a glass of water on a nearby table. "Don't bother." My voice came out sharper than I intended. The small group around us went silent. Veronica stared at me, her eyes drilling into mine, full of suspicion. "What do you have in your dress, Isla?" Just my phone," I stammered, gripping a napkin so hard my fingers turned white. "Battery at 18%. Estimated recording time, 25 minutes. Derek, where the hell are you?" Just then, a clumsy server dropped a tray of mini tarts. Cream splattered down the front of her white uniform. Veronica and Celeste snapped their heads around, ready to launch into a vicious tirade. But I was faster. I pulled out the only clean handkerchief I had, the one embroidered with the snowflake my mother had given me, and gently dabbed the cream off the girl's dress. "It's okay." "Honey," I whispered, fighting back my own shaking. "It'll wash right out." Veronica's cruel smile froze. She couldn't publicly scold me after that small act of kindness. "Let mommy see what phone has you so jumpy." Veronica smiled the cold, calculating smile of a viper ready to strike. She took a step closer. The sour-sweet smell of champagne mixed with Celeste's expensive perfume hit my nose. Their laughter sounded like a razor blade. I clenched the wet napkin in my hands, my knuckles white. A hot wave of pure humiliation washed over me, but I grit my teeth and swallowed the shame whole. I risked a glance at my father. Quelt, he sat nearby, his eyes avoiding mine, his hand shaking slightly as he spun his wine glass. His silence was infinitely worse than their insults. The snickering spread. A few guests raised their phones to record. I forced myself to stand tall and looked straight at Celeste. It's fine. It was an accident. But inside, everything was crashing down. In their eyes, I was still the black sheep who didn't belong. My back pressed against the cold marble table. I thought, if only one person would stand up for me. Next to Veronica stood Celeste, my age, but looking younger in a sparkling red gown, one that surely cost more than half my annual art teacher salary. I took a deep breath, fighting for control, and stepped toward them, gripping a glass of apple juice I grabbed from a passing tray, a tiny anchor for my courage. Celeste saw me first. Her sharp eyebrows shot up, and she leaned in to whisper something to Veronica. Veronica turned around. The polite social smile on her face froze for a second, then vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. Isla. I thought. Nobody told you? Kid? How dare she show up? She's going to find out everything, the money I siphoned from the company. The letter from her mother I hid. No, I have to humiliate her now. Get her out before Grandma or James notices. She forced a fake smile, but her eyes were ice. The lie was so blatant, it almost made me laugh. I couldn't miss it, I replied, my voice steady. Grandma's 90th is special. Celeste stepped forward, a sneer on her lips. You must have the wrong party, sweetie. Service staff used the side entrance. I offered a small, knowing smile and a slight nod. Hi, Celeste. Then I ignored them both and walked straight to my grandmother. I presented her with the portrait. She grasped my hands tightly, her eyes welling up, a shaky smile on her face as if recovering a distant memory. Thank you for coming back. My little Isla, she said, her voice choked but strangely warm. She held my hand tighter, her trembling fingers touching the corner of the recycled wooden frame. Her old, fading eyes suddenly flashed with recognition. She whispered, just for me, you kept it. The painting your mother did for me when I turned 70. Then her eyes flicked quickly toward Veronica, who was approaching, and her face instantly returned to a calm, neutral mask. In that moment, I understood. Grandma never forgot. And this portrait wasn't just a gift, it was the final, lasting proof of the only true love left in this family. Nobody stopped me, but nobody welcomed me either. Veronica quickly cut in, her voice dripping with fake surprise. Oh, still messing around with that tiny art class? Such dedication. Actually, I spoke up, fighting for my voice. I coordinate the free art therapy program for kids with autism at the Cascade Community Center. We help them find themselves through art. A man standing nearby, let's call him Mr. John, looked genuinely interested. But Veronica quickly hijacked the conversation. Speaking of meaningful work, Mr. John, you must hear about our family's new children's outreach program this year. I was expertly cut out of the conversation. As I stepped back, Celeste followed me. Seriously, Isla, why are you even here? She hissed, dropping the politeness completely. No one thought you'd actually show up. Then why did you invite me? I challenged. Celeste's smile was glacial. Mom thought sending the invitation was the decent thing to do to keep up appearances of a united family. In front of everyone. She never thought you'd be brave enough to come alone, she added, twisting the knife deep. I didn't come alone, I shot back. My husband is joining me later. Celeste froze. She was genuinely stunned. Husband? You got married? To who? You'll meet him soon enough, I said, still keeping Derek a secret. Before Celeste could push, another relative, Uncle Henry, my father's brother, and his wife, Linda, walked over. Is that Isla? Uncle Henry shouted, clearly hammered from the open bar. My God, we thought you vanished off the face of the earth. Hello, Uncle Henry, Aunt Linda, I said politely. Aunt Linda air-kissed near my cheek. Honey, where have you been hiding all these years? Veronica said she barely heard a peep from you. The way they twisted the truth was mind-boggling. Veronica practically kicked me out after the wedding and never called me once. I've been busy focusing on my work. I replied simply, "Life gets busy. What kind of work keeps you away from your family?" Uncle Henry asked, waving his hand dismissively. Family is everything. The brutal irony of his words was totally lost on him. As we talked, I saw other relatives and old friends staring and whispering over their wine. Veronica moved back next to Celeste, talking excitedly while constantly sighing me. Then Veronica did the unthinkable. She walked onto the small stage where the band was playing and whispered to the leader. He nodded, stopping the song mid-tune. Ladies and gentlemen, Veronica's voice boomed over the speakers, cutting through the clinking glasses. I want to thank you all for attending Grandma's 90th birthday tonight. Before dinner, I'd like to thank the wonderful team that made this evening happen. Polite applause rose as she gestured around the room. Then her gaze deliberately paused on me, a sneering smile painted on her face. And it seems we have one guest. Who forgot to wear the appropriate attire for tonight's atmosphere? Have you ever stood in a crowd of laughing people, feeling like the whole world was watching you crash, but had to bite down and stand straight? Veronica's public insult, the one about the service staff forgetting their uniform, still echoed in my ears like a sharp knife. The crystal lights shimmered on my navy dress, where my mother's hairpin was the last anchor reminding me why I was here. The clinking glasses, the awkward whispers, and the judging eyes made my heart pound, ready to rip through my chest. Veronica was bragging, her voice loud enough for the entire ballroom to hear. Alex, Celeste's husband, is a senior executive at Horizon Capital, the biggest firm in the city. Darling, your husband. Probably nothing, looking at you in that cheap dress and your silly doodles. The snicker started low, then grew louder as guests nodded, confirming their unspoken judgments. Celeste chimed in, dripping with acid. I bet her husband is a total nobody. A cousin, Laura, covered her mouth, whispering to the person next to her. Doodling. Still dreaming at that age?
Alex strode up to my table, champagne sloshing, making sure a few tables nearby could hear him. Ela? Still doing the art thing, I hear? Ballsy. At your age, still drawing. Are you in the group that's killing it? Or the one hoping someone takes pity and buys a canvas for their wall? Celeste burst into brittle, glass-sharp laughter. Alex continued, looking me up and down. I thought artists were wild and romantic. But looking at you today, the art must be really budget-friendly. Huh? A strange man nearby snickered. Seriously cheap. Another woman cut in. She probably bought that dress at a thrift store. The laughter surged, no longer awkward but thrilled, like I was the evening's main source of entertainment. Suddenly, Celeste linked arms with Alex and pretended to trip him. The champagne in Alex's hand flew, a cold, sticky streak instantly soaking my dress from the waist down. I gasped, my entire body seizing up. Oops. Oh my God, Isla, I'm so clumsy. Celeste yelled, feigning shock, her hand covering her mouth. Alex shrugged, a knowing sneer on his face. Dry clean only, right? The cold seeped through the fabric and onto my skin. An uncontrollable shiver started at my knees, crawling up to my shoulders, threatening to crush my composure. The sour, sweet smell of the champagne mixed with Celeste's expensive perfume created a suffocating cloud. I clenched my hands, my nails digging into my palms. That sharp pain was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. The champagne didn't just soak the dress. It felt like invisible glue, trapping me in the ring of mocking, judging eyes. I swallowed hard, tasting the bitterness of shame and the saltiness of rising tears in my throat. No, not today. Not in front of Grandma. I stood up slowly, clenching the napkin, looking Celeste dead in the eye. It's fine, Celeste. Accidents happen to everyone. My voice was drowned out by the noise. The snickering was back. Phones went up, lenses aimed right at me, recording the disaster. A woman nearby hissed, loud enough for me to hear. Why would she even show up? It's mortifying. My cousin Ethan elbowed his way in, sneering. Still think you can crash this, Isla? Get real. And then, my eyes found my father. He was sitting there, deliberately looking away, refusing to meet the gaze of the daughter they were ganging up on. Dad was just staring at the wine glass in his hand, silent. His silence was 1,000 times worse than Celeste's insults, worse than the crowd's laughter. It was a cold, hard confirmation. I didn't belong. I thought of the portrait I gave Grandma, of her choked-up smile. Thank you for coming back, my little Isla. But even that warm memory wasn't strong enough now to soothe the betrayal that was crushing me. Veronica stepped in, her fake smile razor-sharp. Isla, you need to find something more realistic. Those free art classes at the community center aren't going to get you anywhere. Celeste, still recording on her phone, giggled. This is gonna go viral. Isla Bennett, the failed art teacher, soaking her dress at Grandma's party. Dad must be so proud. The crowd's laughter was louder now, a wave threatening to wash me away. An older man nearby shook his head, whispering to his companion, such a shame, she used to be James's pride. My eyes burned. I bit my lip hard, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The crystal lights shone on my soaked navy dress, highlighting my embarrassment. I touched the hairpin my mother made, trying to draw strength from the memory of my mom and Grandma. I didn't belong here, but I wasn't going to let them see me break. I stood tall, staring straight back at Celeste and Alex, my eyes defiant even though my heart felt like glass. Who would break this moment? Who would stand up for me? Have you ever stood in a luxurious ballroom, feeling like the whole world was ripping you apart? Veronica's insult, service staff, still echoed in the 90th birthday gala hall. The crystal lights shone on my navy dress, soaked with champagne that felt freezing against my skin. I touched the hairpin Mom made, trying to remember the days she taught me origami. The paper napkin in my hand was crumpled, and I bit down, refusing to cry. My cousin Ethan, 30, still as cruel as he was in high school, stepped closer, joining the circle. Isla must be confused, he sneered. Remember Grandma's 80th? Isla crashed that one too, even though only immediate family was invited. I took a deep breath, my voice shaky. I am her immediate family, Ethan. I have every right to be here. Ethan just shrugged, his eyes full of contempt, like I was garbage in my own house. The crowd grew thicker, the whispers spreading. I saw Aunt Laura from Tacoma, old Mr. David who used to play chess with Grandma, and old Bennett family friends. Some raised their phones, screens lighting up, recording me like a spectacle. Celeste wasn't the only one who wanted this moment preserved. Please, I turned to Uncle Henry, Dad's brother, who stood near the gift table. Just let me stay until my husband arrives. He's almost here. Husband? Veronica scoffed. Still making up stories, Isla? That's quite enough of your antics. He's real, I insisted, my voice firm. Enough of the drama, she snapped quietly. Showing up uninvited was rude enough. Now you're lying about being married? It's pathetic. Celeste scrolled through her phone, raising it triumphantly. Your Instagram is so basic, Ela, Celeste said, dripping sarcasm, scrolling the screen. Just drawings in that tiny apartment, no trace of a husband anywhere. She looked up, her face twisted in scorn. Or maybe you were too busy following your passion for anyone to notice you. I gritted my teeth. I kept my life with Derek private, not out of shame, but to protect it. Not everything in my life is online, I retorted, my voice tight. A very convenient excuse, Celeste mocked. So where is this mystery husband? Late or imaginary? I glanced at my watch. The minute hand crawled forward. Derek would be here in 10 minutes if I could just hold on. Veronica ran out of patience. Henry, get Isla out of here right now. We have a cake cutting to do. I am Mrs. Lizette Monroe, I corrected her, almost on instinct. Celeste glared, then sneered. Oh, please. Next, you'll say you married a billionaire? Uncle Henry, his face flushed from the drinks, cut in. Your father will be disappointed, Isla. He taught you better than to ruin a party with invented stories. The mention of my dad was a knife in my gut. Don't you dare bring my father into this, I spat, my voice breaking. None of you get to mention him. You all stood there and watched when Veronica pushed me out of this family, and he did nothing. The crowd hushed. The clinking stopped. Veronica's face hardened. The polite mask dropped. Enough, Isla, she hissed. You were always stubborn, ungrateful. Your father tried everything, but it was never enough. I laughed bitterly, done with caring about appearances. Tried everything. He let me hustle for my college money while Celeste got a new car and private school, all because she knew how to suck up to you. Veronica roared back. You always boasted about your independence. You rejected family support. What support? I challenged, my voice rising. From the day you married my father, you made it clear I didn't belong in this house. Celeste jumped in, her voice cold. You're embarrassing yourself, Isla. Nobody wants to hear your victim story. That's not the point, I said, struggling to stay calm even though my heart was pounding. You and your mother isolated me from my father, treating me like I was invisible, even though he was alive. Veronica replied coldly. Your father knew who you were. He chose his real family, not a child obsessed with useless doodles. My father loved my art before you showed up. I countered. He was proud that I was like my mother, despite what you told me. Celeste waved her hand, laughing. Where did art get you? Teaching free classes, a tiny apartment, crashing a birthday party just to feel important? The soft sound of leather shoes echoed on the polished floor. But it wasn't Derek. It was two security guards walking towards me, led by a man in a black suit, the family lawyer. Miss Bennett, Lawyer Thomas said, his voice polite but firm. Miss Veronica would like to invite you to the private parlor for a moment. There are some matters regarding the gift you brought that need clarification. Veronica stood behind him, a triumphant smile on her face. Don't be nervous, Isla. Your father just wants to thank you for bringing a gift for Grandma. I knew it was a trap. That private parlor would have no witnesses, and once I was in there, they could do anything to me, or to the recorder in my dress. Battery? 7%. Still not here. I secretly checked my watch. 8:58 p.m. He promised 9 p.m. 2 minutes. Just 2 more minutes. A guard stepped closer. Excuse me, ma'am, we need to check. Only one thought was left in my head. If I lose today, at least I knew true love. From Derek, from Mom, from myself. I let my hands relax, accepting defeat. Then, the grand ballroom doors swung open and a cool gust of wind swept in. I thought it was Derek. But no, it was just the cake delivery guy. Veronica laughed loudly. Time's up, Isla. During those agonizing 2 minutes, my phone vibrated once. A message from Derek. Stuck in bridge traffic. 2 minutes to arrival. Hold on, my love. That message was the only thread of hope keeping me tied to reality. And right then, the sound of real leather shoes echoed. Derek walked in. I sighed in relief for half a second, until I saw Veronica smiling, a smile I hadn't seen before. She raised her phone. The screen was live streaming on the Bennett Enterprises fan page with 180,000 people watching. The caption, "The former black sheep crashes Grandma's birthday," deliberately slandering the Bennett family. And the comments were surging. Call the police. Get her out. Send the cops now. Derek whispered softly in my ear. My love, they had a contingency plan. Now we're not just fighting them in this room, but against public opinion too. He wore a simple but perfectly tailored black suit, carrying an exquisitely wrapped gift. His calm demeanor and natural authority instantly drew every eye. I knew he had heard the insults from outside the door. He chose a simple entrance, but nothing could hide the powerful aura of a man used to making decisions. The crowd went silent, eyes fixed on the stranger. Veronica narrowed her eyes, lips pressed tight, trying to assess him. Celeste tilted her head, curiosity mixed with scorn, whispering to Alex. Who is that? Did she hire an actor? Alex sneered, his champagne glass still, his shoulders tense with an uneasy feeling. Uncle Henry and Aunt Linda exchanged looks, eyebrows raised. Isla's husband? Seriously? Grandma, near the cake table, looked up, her eyes bright, her smile trembling as if recognizing something dear. My father, sitting nearby, spun his wine glass, his gaze flickering toward me, momentarily hesitant but still silent. My heart pounded, a mix of relief and anxiety. Having just been humiliated and called a liar, I was terrified Derek's arrival would make things worse, but his gaze stopped on me, gentle and unwavering, pulling me out of the abyss. He walked over, took my hand, his fingers warm. I'm here, he whispered, just for me to hear. I took a deep breath, leading Derek to Grandma's table, my legs shaking but my steps steady. Grandma, I said, my voice catching. I'd like to introduce you to my husband, Derek. Derek placed his gift on the table, an exquisitely carved wooden box. Inside was a sapphire violet brooch, the flower Grandma loved from her youth, accompanied by a handwritten letter from him lying on red velvet. I placed my hand on his as we presented the gift. Derek bowed slightly, his voice deep and respectful. Happy birthday, Grandma. My wife and I were remiss. We got married before we had a chance to ask for your blessing, and that of Mr. James and the family. I hope you can forgive us. Grandma opened the box, her fingers trembling as they touched the sparkling sapphire. Her eyes watered as she quietly read the words in the letter. Thank you for raising Isla to be the wonderful woman she is. She gripped Derek's hand tightly, then pulled me into a warm embrace. Thank you, both of you, for coming home. Then Grandma turned to Veronica, her voice suddenly sharp and icy, the voice of a woman who ran a business for 40 years. Veronica, look closely at this portrait. She held the painting up, her finger pointing to a small corner detail. Lily didn't just paint me. She painted this detail too. The Tiffany clock Dad gave my mother in 1960, the one you sold last year and claimed was lost. The entire room held its breath. Grandma flipped the frame over, her voice hardening further. And here is the line Lily wrote. To Mom, to remember that true value isn't in what we have, but what we keep. You haven't kept anything, have you, Veronica? Veronica stiffened, her fake smile contorted. Her eyes darted from the brooch to Derek. This gift, where is it from? Celeste let out a scoffing laugh, but it died the moment she saw Grandma embracing me. Alex tightened his grip on his wine glass, his eyes wary as he looked at Derek. Ethan backed away, whispering to Laura, What the hell is happening? The relatives murmured, a few put their phones down, no longer recording. Their eyes flickered between curiosity and shame. I looked at Derek, a strange warmth, both intense relief and a vague fear of what was coming next, ran down my spine. My hand, still clasped in his, trembled slightly. I took a deep breath. The warm, woody scent of his cologne chased away some of the sour champagne smell clinging to me. He hadn't revealed his CEO identity, but his presence had completely shifted the room's atmosphere. I wasn't alone in this cold ballroom anymore. Grandma still held my hand tightly, her trembling fingers gently stroking the sapphire brooch. Her eyes glistened, as if reliving distant memories of violets from her youth. A rare moment of absolute stillness settled over the room. The crystal lights shone down on the gift table and the fresh-flowered cake. The whole ballroom was silent, save for the hundreds of held breaths. And in that fragile moment, the silence was shattered. That gift. Veronica's voice cut through the air, sharp as a knife. Where is it from? She stepped forward, her hostile gaze fixed on the brooch in Grandma's hand. It's fake, isn't it? People like you two don't have the money for anything real. The attack was like a bucket of cold water straight to the face. My cheeks burned, a painful contrast to the cold, damp champagne still soaking into my dress. Before anyone could reply, Celeste cut in, her sparkling red dress like a flame of anger under the lights. Her lips curled in utter contempt. That suit rented? My Alex is a senior executive at Horizon Capital. He's the one with status. Alex stood next to her, gently swirling his drink, his eyes sneering at Derek as if he wasn't even worth comparing. A few relatives, Laura, David, the same ones who had just been recording my humiliation, tittered with laughter. Derek squeezed my hand. His fingers were warm, but I felt the tension rising within him. His eyes were gentle when he looked at me, but a second later, when he turned to Celeste, I saw a flash of tightly restrained fury. What did you just say about my wife? He asked, his voice low and heavy, each word weighing down the air. Celeste scoffed, her voice shrill. Wife? Oh, you're really committed to the bit, like anyone would actually marry Isla. Veronica stepped forward, her fake smile distorted. Come on, Mr. Monroe, right? Let's not make a scene at Grandma's birthday, it must be a misunderstanding. Her eyes swept over the sapphire brooch in Grandma's hand, revealing her doubt. That gift, she scoffed, must have cost a pretty penny, huh? Or is it just gold-plated to look real? My heart clenched, mixing humiliation and rage. I wanted to scream that the sapphire was real, that Derek chose it because Grandma loved violets, that he wrote her a personal thank you letter. But my voice choked up, only managing, you don't get to insult Derek. Alex burst into laughter, his voice echoing. Insult Miss Isla, you're the one embarrassing the family, crashing the party, lying about a wedding, and now dragging this guy into your play? He turned to Derek, smirking. How much does a hired actor cost for the night, buddy? Derek didn't answer. His gaze, ice-cold, swept over Alex, and then he pulled his phone from his vest pocket. Just a short call, his voice low and decisive. Fire Alex, Senior Strategy Manager. Immediately. Send the notification to the entire executive board. Veronica and Celeste burst into laughter, Celeste's voice drowning out the piano music. That's a fake phone call. Who do you think you are, the CEO? Veronica waved her hand, dismissing the joke. Stop it, Mr. Monroe. Don't cause a scene at Grandma's party. But Alex's phone rang, the screen showing the HR director's name. He answered, his voice trembling. Yes, sir. What, fired? No, please. The entire ballroom froze, the clinking glasses stopped, the air seemed sucked out of the room. Alex went pale, his phone slipping from his hand, clattering onto the polished floor. He turned to Derek, stammering, Mr. Monroe, I was just joking. Please don't. I have a family. Veronica cut in, frantic, her smile completely gone. It must be a misunderstanding, sir. Please forgive him. Alex just spoke out of turn. Celeste pulled at her husband's arm, her face white as a sheet, whispering, What did you do? Say something. Alex stood motionless, his eyes lost as if he had lost his entire world. Derek looked at Alex, his gaze glacial. You are no longer an employee of Horizon Capital. Then he turned to the crowd, his deep voice resounding. I am Derek Monroe, the CEO of this company. I usually only deal with your superiors, Alex, which is why we haven't met. I rarely appear publicly, which is why you didn't recognize me. But let this be clear. Isla is my wife, and I do not tolerate insults. The entire ballroom went dead silent, as if time had stopped. In that deadly silent moment, Derek pulled his phone from his vest pocket. He walked toward the banquet room's sound system, plugged in a cord, and lightly tapped the screen. From the high-end speakers, normally reserved for background music and speeches, Veronica's voice suddenly boomed out, crystal clear and chillingly precise. The illicit investment from the company fund, James will never know. Rest assured, I've erased every trace from Lily Bennett Enterprises. Next, an unknown man's voice. And Lily's letter? You're certain it was destroyed? Veronica replied, her voice dripping with confidence. Of course, James will never read his ex-wife's final wishes or know that she left Isla all her shares in the company when the girl turned 25. The recording cut off, leaving behind a space of suffocating silence. Derek turned to look straight at Veronica, his voice calm but carrying the stone-like gravity of absolute authority. Before arriving, Isla set her recorder to automatically send a backup copy to my encrypted inbox every 10 minutes. Did you really think soaking her dress would destroy the evidence? The silence now wasn't one of astonishment, it was sheer terror. Then the crowd erupted. Whispers, gasps, and cries of, "Oh my God," echoed from every corner. The gaze of the crowd, which had been skeptical of Derek, now shifted entirely to Veronica, filled with fear and disgust. She lied to James and stole from her own stepdaughter's company? A trembling female voice cut through the air. In the midst of the upheaval, the main characters finally reacted. Celeste's jaw dropped, her hand fell away from Alex, her phone dropped to the floor. Veronica stood frozen, her lips pressed thin, her eyes panicked as if she had just been slapped. Cousin Laura and Uncle David backed away, their video recording stopping, their gazes swinging between shock and admiration directed at me. Grandma touched the sapphire brooch, her eyes bright, a proud smile suggesting she saw something in Derek that the whole Bennett family had missed. My father, still spinning his wine glass, looked up for the first time, seeing me and Derek, his eyes full of anguish and internal conflict. Alex muttered, lost. CEO, why didn't I know? Celeste hid her face, shoulders shaking, her voice choked. How could this happen? I gripped Derek's hand, my heart pounding, but the fear was gone. His eyes were gentle as if saying, I'm here now. I stood straight, my shoulders steady, my gaze sweeping over Veronica, Celeste, and the relatives. Derek had flipped everything, and for the first time, I felt I was not just valued, but the absolute center of this ballroom. From now on, no one would dare look down on me. Isla, darling, you should have told Mom, Veronica said, her voice sickeningly sweet, as if she hadn't just called me a liar. What a wonderful surprise. She stepped forward, attempting to hug me, but Derek subtly moved, creating a barrier. Fascinating, he said, glancing at the phone she was still holding. Just minutes ago, you were live streaming your wife being humiliated, and now you want to hug her? Celeste flushed with shame, quickly shoving her phone into her purse, avoiding eye contact. Uncle David pushed forward, extending his hand to Derek with a flattering smile. David Bennett, James's older brother. An honor, Derek. We admire your success. Derek ignored the handshake. Is that right? That's surprising, given none of you cared about James's daughter for years. The crowd around Grandma's 90th birthday party stirred, unaccustomed to such a public confrontation. The crystal lights illuminated the gift table and the cake, but the air was heavy, like before a storm. Veronica, ever the manipulator, tried again. There must be a terrible misunderstanding. Isla is a cherished member of this family. We just didn't know she married Mr. Monroe. That's precisely the problem, isn't it, Mrs. Bennet? Derek replied, his voice sharp. Isla's value to you only lies in her connections and status, not in who she is. The entire hall watched. The piano music stopped. The service staff froze. Aunt Laura's champagne glass trembled slightly in her hand. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Veronica suggested, glancing nervously at the attentive crowd, her voice shaking. I disagree, Derek said, calm but cold. This is the perfect moment for honesty after everything that has transpired. He turned to the crowd, his deep voice resonating. For those who are unaware, I am Derek Monroe, the CEO of Horizon Capital, the largest company in Seattle. A rapid murmur spread through the hall. Several people nodded, confirming what they had just heard. Derek continued, his voice low but clearly amplified, his eyes sweeping past James, who was still spinning his wine glass in silence. And something many of you may not know. Horizon Capital has a multi-million-dollar strategic contract with Lily Bennett Enterprises, Isla's father's company, which my own father renamed years ago in honor of my mother. A sharp gasp echoed. Veronica's face went white. James suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly. His face was ashen, his eyes looking neither at Derek nor Veronica, but straight at me, filled with confusion and chaos. Before he could speak, I found my voice and stepped forward. A strange calm washed over me. My hand touched the stiff outline in the lining of my dress. Before we hear any excuses, my voice rang out clearly, cutting through the suffocating air. I have something I want Dad and everyone here to see. I pulled out a stained ivory envelope, bearing my mother's familiar handwriting. I held it up. The night before I left home 8 years ago, I went into my mother's old study. I found this letter, hidden inside a sketch pad. This is the original. Veronica searched for and destroyed the legal will sent to the lawyer, but she never expected Mom to hide a copy. I looked at Veronica, whose eyes seemed ready to incinerate the envelope. In this letter, Mom clearly states leaving all her shares in Lily Bennett Enterprises to me when I turned 25. And more importantly, I emphasized every word, she wrote about her suspicions. That someone was siphoning money from the company into ghost projects, unnamed black investments. She was suspicious even before she passed. I turned toward my father, handing him the letter. James tremblingly received it, his hands looking completely drained of strength. While he opened the letter, I continued, now looking straight at Veronica. And to prove those aren't just words, everyone just heard your own voice admitting it on the recording. And here, I reached for the phone from Derek's hand, holding up the screen, is a copy of the transfer receipt from your authorized account, Veronica Bennett, to a shell company in the Cayman Islands, dated exactly at the time Mom mentioned. All documents are now in the hands of Derek's legal counsel. The whole room gasped. James finished reading the last lines, his face no longer pale, but turning ashen. He looked up, meeting Veronica's eyes with a look I had never seen before. A complete breakdown, mixed with utter disgust. Veronica? His voice was a choked whisper. Veronica took a step back, her mouth working but no sound coming out. The tables had turned completely. And right then, James finally turned to me, his voice shattering under the weight of everything. Ela, you don't understand. The company. I renamed it Lily Bennett Enterprises in memory of your mother. Every dime of profit, I transferred to a lung cancer charity foundation named after your mother, to help people like her. He choked up, his eyes bloodshot. If the contract with Horizon Capital is canceled, that foundation will collapse. Hundreds of patients will lose their last source of support. He reached into his vest pocket, pulling out a wrinkled photograph. Me at 7, sketching next to Mom. I've kept this for 23 years. Every time I wanted to call you, to protect you. I looked at it and listened to her, saying you'd be happier, freer without me. His explanation was no longer a defense, but a painful confession of the weakness and guilt that had made him fail as a father. That's right, Derek interjected, his voice sharp, but now shifting his attention from Alex to the center of the scandal, Veronica. Horizon Capital is the strategic partner that keeps Bennett Enterprises solvent, and I do not collaborate with partners engaged in unethical behavior, especially embezzlement and deception within their own family. That's not true. Veronica desperately clung on, her voice weak and colorless. It's just a misunderstanding. James, I can explain. You've explained enough? I cut her off, my voice no longer calm but heavy with authority. With your own voice on the recording, everyone here has heard it. Celeste bowed her head, her face crimson, her hand trembling as she touched the handbag where her phone was still stashed. Veronica tried to salvage the situation, her voice quick and frantic. Derek, you understand? Family matters are complicated. Isla was always difficult to get along with. If we had known she was your wife, we would have treated her with the respect she deserved. Derek cut in, his voice bone-chillingly cold. That's the entire issue. No one should need my name or money to be treated kindly, especially not by their own family. I took a deep breath, squeezing Derek's hand. That's enough, sweetheart. They understand. Derek looked at me, his gaze softening slightly but still firm. Are you sure? Because I am ready to cancel the Bennett Enterprises contract tonight. The threat hung over Veronica like a guillotine. She panicked, her voice high and desperate. No, you can't. The company will. James straightened up, his chair scraping loudly again. His eyes were filled with pain, his lips pressed so tightly they were white. You don't have to, I said, my voice resonating throughout the hall. Bennett Enterprises should not collapse because of family drama. Veronica let out a short, ragged breath, but the panic remained in her eyes. I wasn't done, but, I continued, taking a step toward my stepmother, my voice cold and clear with every syllable. This family needs to change how it treats me, starting with you and Celeste. Veronica's final fake smile shattered. You can't do this, she screamed, her voice cracking with fury and fear. The Bennett family built this reputation over 20 years. It's all thanks to James's hard work and his father's. I stared right into her eyes, my voice completely steady. Hard work that I was shut out of after my mother died. Celeste stepped forward, her eyes desperate. Ela, calm down. We're family. No, I interrupted, my voice sharp and uncompromising. We are not family. Family doesn't humiliate each other for sport. Family doesn't erase someone's existence because it's inconvenient. We are merely people who are legally related through my father, nothing more. Derek nodded, immediately understanding my intent. He turned to James, his voice low but no longer harsh. Horizon Capital will review the contract with Bennett Enterprises. I hope you handle this well, Dad, so the contract isn't canceled. We don't partner with unethical collaborators, but I know Isla still values you. A few relatives murmured amongst themselves. Aunt Laura and Uncle David backed away, unable to meet our gaze, bowing their heads in shame. In the weeks that followed, the storm of public opinion truly hit. The video clip of Celeste spilling champagne was turned into a viral meme with the mocking caption, "Karma is a CEO." I received hundreds of messages, ranging from thank you notes for inspiring them to face their toxic families, to harsh critiques that I had publicly shamed them, and that Derek used corporate power to settle a private score. I read it all, and one question haunted me. In the age of social media, where does the line between justice and public revenge actually lie? The consequences were clear. Alex lost his job and his reputation collapsed. Celeste went unusually silent. Relatives who had joined in the humiliation one by one sought me out with clumsy apologies, claiming they had always admired my independence. I responded with polite indifference. Their belated attempts at damage control held no value anymore. 6 months later, at the opening ceremony of the Emma Bennett Art Studio, a free art space named after my mother, I stood before a small group of people who truly belonged to me. Grandma, Aunt Claire, Derek, and even Aunt Laura, the only relative who dared to admit her complicit silence and tell me about the weak, manipulated image of my father, who kept my photo hidden like a painful secret. Her words didn't erase the pain, but they gave me the courage to let go. Art gave me a voice when I was silent, I said in my short speech. Now I hope this space will become a place where other children can find their own voice. That evening, by Lake Washington, under the silver moonlight, Derek asked gently, "And how do you feel now?" I squeezed his hand. Now I know I was whole a long time ago. Their acceptance never defined me. A new order has been established. Lily Bennett Enterprises is still operating, but all profits for the next 5 years are being transferred to my art foundation. Veronica and Celeste have lost all financial control. My father is still the CEO, but now he has to look me straight in the eye during every board meeting. And sometimes, in the quiet, one question still lingers. Is this mercy a subtle form of more sophisticated punishment? Or have I also become just a more polished version of the people who hurt me? What do you think? Thank you for staying with Ela until the very end of this journey. Where are you watching from? And have you ever found yourself in Ela's situation? Being dismissed by your own family, marginalized simply for not living up to their expectations? Let us know your feelings in the comments section. About Isla, about Derek, about the characters in the story, and all your honest thoughts. If you ever saw yourself in this story or know someone who had to fight for recognition, please share this video with them. Sometimes all it takes is the right story at the right time to change an entire journey. And if you want to continue following stories of healing, justice, and rich emotion like this, hit that subscribe button because who knows, the next video might just be your story. If you were Isla, would you choose honor or legacy? Comment honor if you would cancel the contract and let the company go bankrupt for revenge. Comment legacy if you saved the company to preserve the charity foundation named after your mother. And share this with someone who needs to see that. Sometimes, the hardest choices define who we are.